So you've heard my name is Mitch. Everyone say hi, Mitch. Hey. All right. How many of you would love to have more influence than you already do in your business relationships? How many would want that? All the time, right? So here's what I'll say right from the get-go. I believe that influence is the single most important skill that you can have, not just in business, but in your life. And I say that because when you think about getting your business done, for most of you, it's about getting things done with and through other people, right? How many say that's the case for me? Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And today, what I want to do is help you learn how to get others on the same page with you more often, more quickly, with less friction. And if you're really good, can you get someone, or anyone for that matter, to move from point A to point B around an important issue when point B is not someplace that they want to go naturally? It's not comfortable for them. It's not where they would gravitate to if it was left up to them. And can you move them, whether it's a behavior or an attitude or something different that you want, can you move them from point A to point B and leave them feeling understood and leave them feeling valued in the process? Who would like to be able to do that? Okay, today is all about that. Let's see if I've got the clicker going. Okay, here we go. And so my first question to you is because I'd like to know who you are thinking about when it comes to your life, your business, and who you most need to influence or where you need to be better at influence. And I'm wondering, for many of you, is it your employees or colleagues who would say it's my employees or colleagues who would say that? So a few of you. How many of you are thinking primarily about your customers? Who's saying it's all about the customers? And who of you would say it's about partners and suppliers? Who is saying that? So I'm looking to see what the majority, and I'm going to say that most of you are saying you're interested in influencing your customers. But everything that I offer you for the next 30 minutes will have application against all those categories. And I am going to offer you not only mindsets, but lots and lots of tools that should be able to help you become more influential with the relationships that matter most to you. And despite the fact that I say I'm going to provide you with lots of tools and mindsets, at the base of it all, I think it boils down to one skill. And that's your ability to deal with others from their vantage point, the way they see things, the way they think about things. And for most of you, you say, well, Mitch, that's really simple. We're talking about dealing with others by putting ourselves in their shoes. And it sounds incredibly simple, but it's not. Because most of us as human beings are incredibly wired for our own self-interest. What we think, what we want, what's in it for me. It's very difficult to get most human beings in a place where they can focus on what's the experience of the person I'm across from. What are they up against? What do they most need? Most of us have an internal dialogue going on all the time about your own needs and where is this going to go and how is it going to serve me? And I'm here to say that at some level, if you want to be influential, you have to give some of that up. You have to let go of some of that and say, the big game is usually sitting across from you in the other chair or on the other end of the phone. That's where your focus needs to be. And when I teach this mindset to executives and corporations, I use a program. Well, let me just say this before we get there. I'll tell you the program name. It's called Tu Casa, Mi Casa. How many of you in this room are Spanish speakers? Yeah, un poco. And how many of you are saying, he's got that backwards? How many recognize that that saying is backwards? Yes, indeed. The old statement of hospitality is, mi casa, tu casa, my house is your house. And yet here I've got it the other way around, and I'm not saying my house is your house. I'm saying your house is my house. And of course, what I'm talking about there is frame of reference. And I'm saying, I'm going to deal with you completely from inside of your house. That's going to become my new house, if you will. Your frame of reference is where I'm going to live and breathe and try and make decisions from. Okay, so this is what it's all about. So when I talk about my house, I'm talking about my worldview, my frame of reference. You know, the way I look at things, the way I feel about things, because how people feel about things is as important as how they think about them. And when I talk about your house or the other person's house, obviously I'm talking about their worldview, their frame of reference, how they look at things, how they see things. And my question for you is, well, the question is, why on earth would you want to get out of your house and get into someone else's? Any inkling? Why would you want to do that? Say that again? That's to best help them. What else? To get what they want or to get what you want? I'm assuming it's the right answer. And listen, if I really want something, guess whose house I need to be in to provide something so that I get what I want? So at some level, some of you are saying, well, it sounds awful altruistic, but in fact, at some level, it can be self-serving. If you do the right things for others, guess what? You have an opportunity to leverage that for your own need. And the reason I say you should get out of your house and into someone else's house is because it's all about results. Because once again, as I said earlier, I think you get the vast majority of results in your life, in your business, because you get things done with and through others. Okay? Make sense? Yep. So let's just think about results for a minute. Think about the results that you get in your business. How many of you recognize that most of those results that you're looking for absolutely depend on someone else and the way they see things? Yeah, many of you are saying that's the case. So let's just talk about me for a second. I'm going to go back 20 years. And I'm going to be the guy that you're dealing with. And this was 20 years ago. Here's who I would be. I would be the guy who, if I have to move you on any significant subject matter, any topic, I need to get a result out of the meeting, I would have all my strategy aligned in my head on how to move you from here to where I need you to be by the end of the meeting. And I would have all my yeah buts all stacked up and ready to go for anything that you might say. Do you think I was truly present to what the other party was offering in that conversation? Not at all. I was completely stuck in my own house, completely in my own house. And I had the good fortune of a friend that came with me to a couple of client interactions, a couple of client meetings. And my friend said to me, he said, listen, Mitch, you look like the guy who is just waiting for your turn. Waiting for your turn. Like you look like you're ready to pounce, but you do not look like you are at all interested in what the other person is experiencing, what their needs are. You just look like it's all about you. And I was, horrified by that feedback. And he said, listen, there's something I'd like you to do. I'd like you simply in your next couple of meetings to go in and don't stop strategizing, but when you walk in the room, leave it all at the door and just be present to what the other person is saying. And at that time, for the next couple of meetings, I found that incredibly difficult. I would be in places where I'd hear them say something, and I'd say, I've got a solution for that in my mind, and I'm like, I want, and I would bite my lip. And every time I bit my lip, the longer I waited, the better I got at understanding what I really could do with or for this other person. So it was fantastic, and to this day, it's still incredibly difficult for me. I still have trouble when I'm in front of someone and I think I've got a solution to wait longer, hear more, really flesh it out. But every time I do, I find myself far better able to get to a good decision, to get to a good result, and to do something that really serves the other party that coincidentally serves me. So here's my first bit of insight that I hope you'll take away today, and it's this. Please do not catch my disease, okay? I am hoping you do not catch this. All right. let's move forward. Okay, I'm going to just talk for a moment about this concept of being caught in your own head and the things that you want, the things that you see. If you are a person who sees things in only one way, and you show up as the person who always has a viewpoint, what is the likelihood that others will be open to allowing you to influence them? Pretty low, right? You know, they sense that. They can almost smell it. They can see when you are a one-trick pony, when you size things up so quickly that you've always got a solution, and you immediately lose your ability to have influence with others. So I'm going to tell a story that kind of brings it into focus. And the story, it didn't happen here in Manhattan, but I'm going to place it in Manhattan. It's a true story. It just didn't happen here. But let's say it did. Someone flew into Newark, and they had meetings with someone here in Manhattan. And they also had meetings the next day in Philadelphia, so it meant that they had to drive. So rather than taking a taxi or a shuttle in from the airport, what they did is they rented a car. And they drove in from the airport, and they went through the tunnel in Manhattan. And just as they got through the tunnel, the rental car broke down. Now, they had their mobile phone, so they made 2 calls. Who's the first person they called? Well, they called the rental car company. They called the rental car company and said, hey, I'm broken down on the side of the road. Brand new rental car. I've got a meeting. And they said, listen, don't worry. We'll send someone for you. We've got a tow truck driver on contract. We'll send him out right now so we don't have to make you wait. We'll get you back here. We'll get you in a new car. We'll have it ready. There'll be no more paperwork, and we'll get you on your way right away. Who did the other call go to? Yeah, the person they're meeting with. So they called the person. They said, hey, listen, I've had this big problem with the car. I'm probably going to be delayed by 90 minutes. Can we push the meeting back? And the person on the other said, 90 minutes? I can't wait 90 minutes. We can't do that. So where are you? And they gave them their coordinates. They said, I'm at this intersection. They said, listen, we're going to send someone for you. And the person they sent drove a rusted out old Jetta. Does anyone not know what a Jetta is? Most of you know it's a Volkswagen product, and there are a lot of them that just go and go and go. There's lots of them still on the road. And this one was a particularly rusted out old Jetta. So now this person who's stranded on the side of the road is sitting there thinking, okay, I've got someone coming for me. So they call back the rental car company and say, hey, come and get your car. I've got a ride. You don't need to worry about me. And please, can you take the charges off my credit card? So they do that. And as they're waiting, all of a sudden, here comes the person with the Jetta. And 20 seconds later, here comes the tow truck driver. Which car does the tow truck driver pull up to hook up to? The Jetta. The Jetta. Now, it's bizarre because the tow truck driver was contracted by who? The rental car company. But in real life, this person who drove the tow truck had 25 years driving tow truck. So he had this kind of already always knowing. When he arrived on the scene, he was able to, look at it really quickly and decide where he was going. And right away, he hooks up to the wrong vehicle. So one of the things that I hope for you in your careers is that you don't hook up to the Jetta too often, okay? Because you could end up looking like this guy up here. And the interesting thing is, as you become more experienced, as you become more successful, the likelihood that you'll have seen many things, done many things, and sized things up very quickly increases. What I'm telling you is the likelihood that you'll hook up to the Jetta increases as you get deeper in your business, deeper in your careers. And it's part of the reason why we have such challenge these days between boomers, I'm a boomer, and the Gen X, the Gen Y, the millennials, because the boomers been around for a while. They've seen a lot, they've done a lot of things, and they believe they have solutions. And the other generation are going, well, you don't have the market cornered on these solutions. So can you become the person who, no matter how much experience you have, you enter every situation really trying to get into someone else's house, really trying to understand their frame of reference, because otherwise you'll hook up to the Jetta too often, too quickly. So I promised you tools. Let me give you a very simple one for starters. Here's the first one. And it's this. When you're in conversation or you're in a meeting with another party in your business, at the end of the conversation, when you think everything is said and done, Here's a question you might choose to ask. Are there questions I should have asked by now that I haven't? Or you might want to frame that differently. You could say something as simple as, is there anything else on your mind that we should be discussing? But that first question, this one right here, are there questions that I should have asked by now that I haven't, is a question that I ask every single client in every single significant client interaction I have. And I wait till the end till I think that I've heard everything possible, everything that I need to know, and then I ask the question. And it's amazing to me, not always, but sometimes, how they respond to that question changes everything about our relationship, gives me a new insight into ways that I could serve them, ways that I can gain more business. As simple as this is huge. I have literally asked that question at the end of a conversation, had someone say, Mitch, you didn't ask us about budget. We're not sure if we can afford what you might want to bring to us. That led me to understanding that allowed me to structure my proposal to them completely differently and completely within their house, their frame of reference, and won that business. And I probably wouldn't had they not responded to this question. I've had people say to me things like, well, Mitch, we need to know that you're available next week. Is that possible? That changes everything. You know, I'm not thinking next week in most cases. And sometimes asking this question really makes a difference. So the second tool that I'll offer you is something that I call the CBC. Can anyone tell me what is the CBC? Anyone know? No speculation on the CBC? It is the conversation beside the conversation. So let me say that again. The conversation beside the conversation. So you're in a meeting or you're in an interaction with someone and there is some sort of topic that's being discussed. You know, it is the topic of this meeting, for instance. But then you'll notice in most of those meetings, you have another voice. And it's the voice in your own head saying things like, this is crazy. Why are we doing this? Why are we talking about this? Wait a minute. I don't have that kind of manpower available to me. Why would I make that choice? So you have all these thoughts. So you get what I mean when I say the conversation beside the conversation? And what do you think most people do when the conversation beside the conversation crops up for them? What do? Absolutely nothing. They stay with the topic that the meeting or the interaction is about and never raise it. And I go, oh my goodness. For me, it's something like, this is crazy. I don't have the manpower to do this. If I don't make the conversation beside the conversation explicit, oh my goodness, I am just wasting my time and wasting their time from that moment on. So one of the things I'll say to you is most often, not always, and you'll understand this clearly, when you have a CBC, a conversation beside the conversation crop up for you, it's probably wise to make it explicit. That would probably be a very good thing in most cases. Now, there's sometimes when you're thinking the other person is off their rocker, you know, that doesn't make it, you know, that stuff you'll be careful about. But when there's something of substance, rather than suffering through it and not giving them the benefit of understanding, if you're really interested in getting to some good solution with someone else, you will surface the conversation beside the conversation. Okay? Here's number 3. Very simple, a tool that I call inquiry. And what I mean is any sincere effort that you use to try and understand the other party. So anytime that you're really trying to understand them, trying to get into their house, if you will, that's all I'm talking about when it comes to inquiry. And literally, if you want someone to buy into something, or someone to buy something from you, or you want to change an opinion or a viewpoint, how on earth can you get them to move if you don't understand exactly where they begin? And that's where inquiry comes into play, is you need to understand where they're at so well that you know how then you can move them from whatever they're seeing or understanding to a place that makes more sense to you or maybe makes more sense to them. And if you are interested in inquiry, it also means that you're going to become great at asking questions. But my question for you is, what constitutes great listening? Well, if you're asking questions, you need to become a great listener. What constitutes great listening? Anyone give me examples of great listening? Or attributes of great listening? Yes? Asking a lot of questions, yes. Not speaking until they're done answering, yes. Validation, yes. Don't make any assumptions, all of that. Huh? Body language, absolutely. But for me, there's only one metric that I think about when it comes to great listening. How many of you have been on a flight in the last year or so? Who's been on a flight? You know the kind of listening goes on when the airline attendant comes out into the aisle and reads the safety instructions? How's the listening there? That's not what we're talking about, right? Now I want you to imagine that the pilot comes on the loudspeaker and you are now at 30,000 feet. You're in the air. The pilot comes on and the pilot says, "Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a small mechanical problem with the aircraft. We are going to send the flight attendants back out into the aisles to reread the safety instructions." How is the listening now? Okay? It's a little different, right? This is what I call emergency airline listening. Okay? You have the option to listen like that all the time. But do you? I know I don't. Does it cost you anything? Only focus. It doesn't require more time. So you have the opportunity to use airline emergency listening. The other thing, if you're really thinking about inquiry and you really want to understand someone else's viewpoint, is, I think someone said it earlier, you want to clarify, clarify, clarify. You want to spend a lot of time clarifying. I'll tell you what frightens me. If I'm dealing with someone and I say, "Have you got it?" and they look at me and say, "Yes, Mitch, I've got it." How on earth do I know that they've got it? You know, if they say, "Yep, I'm good," I'm fearful. I like the person who says to me, "Mitch, did you mean more like this or did you mean more like that?" I like the person who says, "Mitch, when you said end of day, did you mean 5 p.m. or did you mean midnight?" I like the person who says, "Mitch, when you said you wanted that report short and sweet, did you mean one pager or did you have something else in mind?" So your ability to clarify is going to be a huge tool for you to be able to drive forward to the right kind of results. Okay? The other thing I think about when it comes to inquiry is this. I think inquiry is absolutely the base of trust. And all of us recognize if we want to be more influential, we have to have trust with the other party. You probably won't let anyone influence you that you don't trust. But the question is, where does trust come from? If I'm the average Joe walking into a meeting and I'm meeting with a client for the very first time, I might say to myself things like this. I might say, "Listen, if I can demonstrate that I'm a good guy, maybe they'll trust me. If I can demonstrate I'm competent, maybe I'll gain some trust. If I can demonstrate I have their best interests at heart, maybe I'll gain their trust." And interestingly enough, all those things might contribute to trust, but that's a very small lever to pull on to gain trust. As a matter of fact, I would say that people don't trust you because they understand you. I would say just the opposite. People tend to trust you when they believe you understand them, when you get what they're up against. And just to test that theory, I want you to think about your closest friends in life. Not your significant other, not family. I'm talking people that you've chosen to be in your life as friends. The reason you likely trust them is they get you. They don't misunderstand you. They get your wiring. So your ability to gain trust with anyone, which of course is important to your ability to influence, becomes your ability to demonstrate that you get what they're up against. You know what their experience is like. So that is the trigger. It's counterintuitive for most people. Most people say, "I need to demonstrate something about me." No, what you need to demonstrate is that you get the other party. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, absolutely. Let's see where we're going here. Let's talk about ways that you can demonstrate just that. If you want their trust and you want to demonstrate that you've got their frame of reference, what they're up against, one of the great skills is what I call representing. And you notice, I frame that as representing. And when I say representing, I mean at the end of a conversation, where we have, maybe some interaction. Let's say Ramon and I are talking, we're on the phone for 30 minutes, and Ramon is trying to impress something to me. At the end of that conversation, Ramon probably hopes that I can look back at him and say, Ramon, here are the 3 things that I think I heard that are most important to you. It was this, and I think you thought this was pretty important, and I better understand this. Okay? So your ability to give back what either I'll call the essence of the message, or if you want, the headlines of the message, is one of the simple skills that you can use if you want to demonstrate that you get their reality, which means you're looking to gain trust, which is the key to getting you influence. If you want to go deeper, there's something that I call implication reflection. And what I mean by that is your ability to speak to the implications in their world about whatever you're discussing with them. So if I'm dealing with someone, they say, Mitch, if you can't help us with this, it means that I might lose this client. And my cash flow is really tough right now, and I don't know I'll be able to keep the doors open. If that's part of the conversation, and I don't, at the end of our conversation, not only give them the headlines or the essence, but say, and I hear you saying, if I can't pull this off for you, your entire business is at stake? And they're saying, yes, Mitch, now you've got it. Now you understand what I'm dealing with. So your ability to speak to the implications in their life is one of the great skills to get you that demonstration that you've got where they're coming from, and then you can have some influence there. So one more skill I'll offer you, and this is what I call directness. Your ability to speak your truth with ease. The world is full of people who can spin things, who can position things, who can manage the optics. How many of you, when someone is trying to spin things to you or manage the optics for you, know it in a heartbeat? How many of you recognize it? You know it right away, and yet many of us still do the same thing on the other side. They know it as quickly as you do. So I would say, if you want to have influence, lose all the spin. Lose all the positioning. Say what's really on your mind. That stands out like a sore thumb in today's environment. Very few people walk into meetings and really call it as they see it. It's interesting. I spent some time in Attica Prison. I do some work with the prisoners there, and Attica is a place where they're all lifers, or they've raped someone, or they've killed someone, so they're not coming out. They're not coming out. And these are scary dudes. They're in there for life. But I find Attica Prison a breath of fresh air. And why I say that is because when I speak to them, they've got nothing to lose, so they speak the truth as bluntly and plainly as any person you could imagine. And I was just starting. No? You turn that off? I was liking that. Okay. Later. Okay, later. So inside Attica, are you good with mild profanity? Yeah, okay. So here's the deal. I leave Attica Prison, and for the next day or day and a half, every single person I talk to, I mean every single person, everyone, sounds like they're completely full of shit by comparison. Because I've just been in the presence of absolute truth. And I have never run into a place where I've come out of Attica and the world sounds right to me on the outside. It takes me a day or two just to adjust. Okay. A couple last things that I will leave you with here. I'm going to try and wrap it up in one skill set that came from a movie that I think most of you will be familiar with. Is there anyone here who doesn't know E.T., the movie E.T.? Oh, people, in the front row here. Okay, so everyone knows E.T., cuddly space alien. And E.T. in the movie, if you remember, there's a little boy by the name of Elliot. And Elliot really kind of fell in love with E.T. And Elliot wanted to get E.T. into where? He wanted to get him to his home, but the first place he wanted was in his house. He wanted to get E.T. in his house. He wanted him in his bedroom, actually. What tool did Elliot use to get E.T. to his house, his room? Let's see, I'm going to go right by this. Reeses Pieces. Where did Elliot drop the first Reese's piece? Where did he drop the first Reese's piece? At his own feet? At E.T.'s feet. So he put his first Reese's piece exactly where he thought E.T. was, which happened to be out behind his house in the woods. So he started exactly where he thought E.T. was. And he laid the trail of Reese's Pieces all the way back to him. Now, us as adults, what we often do when we want to convince someone is we dump the Reese's Pieces at our feet and say, come get them. You know, come understand my house. But Elliot was smart enough to try and understand E.T.'s house, and he started exactly where E.T. was. And today, folks, the real skill that I'm talking about is the ability to do just that, to lay your first Reese's piece exactly where you think they might be. And to do that, you have to get out of your house and into theirs. Thank you all. Wow. Thank you. Oh, back up? Okay, back up it is. All right.
Wasn't that dropping some science? Yeah. How many want to leave your house and get into his house? Wow. Are you guys still having a good time? Yeah. And I just want to know, does anybody have one question, though? Do you really have a question, Deborah? Really? No, I'm just teasing. It was fast. So, Deborah, please, shout it out. Yeah, thank you very much. But thank you, Mitch. It was really delightfully awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. That was a great presentation. I especially liked the Attica part. That was beautiful. So I just have a question about influence.
Yep.
How do you exercise influence in a way that isn't manipulative? Is there a difference? Can you
So
articulate
the
that?
answer to that comes from, I'm going to tell a story, very quick one. I was in my office one day, this is many years ago, my administrative assistant, her name was Kathleen, and I said, Kathleen, what are you up to tonight? She said, I'm going to an Introduction to Buddhism course. And I went, oh, where is it, and could I come along? Because, you know, I just went, I'd like to learn something. So I went, and we went through a couple hours, and they introduced us to a bunch of concepts, and at the end, they asked, are there any questions? And I was the only person who asked a question. I said, can you tell me, is there anything that you've learned, and this was the person running the program, from your life inside of Buddhism that is probably the highest thing that you've learned that would really serve us? And he thought for a long time, and he said this. He said, Mitch, yeah, I do. It's one thing. He said, when I have a decision to make, I ask myself two questions. And the questions are, is it good for them, and is it good for me? And if I can't say yes to both, I don't make that decision. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Cool.
Mitch, thank you so much
Thank you.
You're welcome.
for being here today. And I know you're going to be with us for a while. Thank
You
you.
bet.
Remember,